Hello you beautiful misfits, my name is Matt and this is Pixel Burn, where I take a snarky look at some of the more important, interesting or irritating things going on in gaming news. Except most of the news these past 2 weeks has been a bit dull really. Mostly stuff like such and such game has been released or such and such game has been delayed, you know, the kind of things gaming site interns churn out on a daily basis. Boring. So yeah, there's really no point me doing an episode this week.
Objection! Take that!
Oh yeah, there was a bunch of legal stuff going on you might not be aware of. Better than nothing, I suppose. We begin with the news that the UK Advertising Standards Authority, the independent regulator charged with overseeing adverts across all media to make sure they're not horrible outright fibs, has in response to several complaints assembled a team to investigate the advertising for No Man's Sky. God, a pity the poor ASA buggers who drew the short straw on that one. That's their Christmas ruined. Well, perhaps not. The primary focus of the ASA's investigation are the trailers, screenshots and general information on the game's Steam store page, like this old chestnut of a trailer used to reveal the game to the world back at E3 2014, showing things like immense creatures destroying huge trees, flowing water and ships flying close to the ground in dramatic atmospheric dogfights. Plus, you know, the superior graphical fidelity, better draw distance and far less noticeable ugly terrain popping. Of course, in the actual game, even the biggest animals you might find aren't anywhere near as huge as this majestic bastard, and they certainly can't destroy foliage or terrain features. Also, the water's always perfectly still, and you definitely can't fly that close to the ground unless you own the PC version and use the low flight mod. Yes, I am aware the mod exists. I love you and I know you mean well, but please stop telling me about it. Anyhow, the team from the ASA will also be looking at this trailer that shows off a crashed space freighter that... well, they aren't in the game either, quelle surprise. Considering you can't actually destroy freighters anyway, only shoot their cargo canisters off, and the buggers don't even move after they've warped in, there's no feasible way, in the game's current state, they could end up crash-landed on a surprisingly populated procedurally generated planet. Unless they accidentally reach the centre of the galaxy or something. Whoops, spoilers! This would not be the first time the Advertising Standards Authority have stepped in over misleading video game advertising. Their biggest scalp to date is Sega's for Aliens Colonial Marines, originally advertised with glossed up footage of that notorious E3 vertical slice demo, which, as we all now know, thanks to hindsight, was representative of the final game only in the sense that there are pulse rifles, xenomorphs and colonial marines in it. The ASA were able to compel Sega to admit the trailers did not accurately reflect the final content of the game, and forced them to agree to add a disclaimer to all Aliens Colonial Marines trailers, clarifying that the trailer footage shown uses the in-game engine and represents a work in progress. Which brings us to what the ASA can actually do if their investigation deems Hello Games' advertising to have been misleading. Not that much, to be honest. At the very least, they can impel Hello Games to remove the misleading trailers and screenshots and information from the game's UK Steam store page and replace them with something better representative of the finished product. Although, in their response to Reddit user AsaUK, one of several complainants who contacted them about No Man's Sky's full-blown lies, the ASA said the following. The outcomes of ASA investigations are cross-applicable to other marketing making the same claim, so any decision reached in relation to the Steam page would apply to other advertising for No Man's Sky where the same or materially similar claims appear. So if the ASA made the decision that No Man's Sky's advertising was naught but dust on the galactic winds of lies, Sony would also have to remove the misleading trailer from the UK PlayStation Store and their UK YouTube channels. Apart from that, yeah, don't expect huge punitive fines or much else in the way of legal bull breaking here. As noble as the ASA's cause is, it can only do so much. Still, at least it's something. Although probably of little comfort to people who bought No Man's Sky expecting a universe of fantabulous wonderment only to end up with a Psygnosis Amiga game box art generator instead. That was the proper pronunciation, by the way, Psy being short for psyche and Gnosis being the common Greek noun for knowledge. Don't feel too bad about saying it wrong though, I used to call them Psygnosis. Tangentially speaking of Valve, the US federal court last week granted a motion to dismiss a class action lawsuit filed against the company for enabling illegal gambling through weapon skins for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. US District Judge John C. Coffiner? Is that how you pronounce it?
United States District Judge John Coffiner.
How was I supposed to know that? It's spelled cough. Anyway, John C. Cohen or Diamond here granted the motion to dismiss, with prejudice, on the grounds that gambling losses did not qualify as a violation of the United States RICO Act. No, sadly, this has nothing to do with Johnny Rico from Starship Troopers. Rico in this case refers to the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organisations Act, passed in 1970 as part of an ongoing effort to combat the mafia. It's not just for the mafia though. The RICO Act has been used against such diverse personages as a US senator who helped someone hide their assets in a bankruptcy case, a Texas healthcare provider maintaining lucrative contracts through the use of bribes and coercion, and that whole little kerfuffle over racketeering, wire fraud and money laundering involving 14 FIFA officials. So yeah, if you're looking for a stick to beat Valve with, then RICO's a pretty solid one, so long as it's used properly of course. Which it wasn't in this instance, obviously. So why was the case dismissed? Well, in a nutshell, the plaintiff's legal team fucked up on the nitty-gritty details and got their state and federal level misdemeanors mixed up. Firstly, they failed to assert what is called a qualifying injury, which, translated from legalese, means the plaintiffs didn't clarify precisely how pissing away their money's worth of skins on a skin casino site had actually harmed them. After all, as stated in Schwartz v Upper Deck in July of 2000, plaintiffs must show that they have suffered an economic harm to business or personal property. Now before you say, but they lost skins they bought and could exchange for real money, how does that not harm them? Alas, gambling losses don't qualify as injury in a RICO filing. That kind of thing is covered by state level gambling laws the federal court has no jurisdiction over. In fact, that whole federal state law dichotomy was the primary stumbling block here, and part of the reason this script has taken me so bloody long to write. I mean, shit, if qualified American lawyers can still get it wrong, then how the fuck am I meant to wrap my head around it? Another cock-up on the plaintiff's part, connected to the first one, was since their lawyers didn't specify exactly how much money they'd lost from pissing away said skins on CSGO Lotto and other such sites, they couldn't pursue the case under the Class Action Fairness Act either. All the plaintiff's lawyers had to do to get federal jurisdiction through that route was prove their damages exceeded $5 million. Except they didn't, of course. They didn't even provide evidence the plaintiffs had lost a single dollar between them, relying instead on common sense arguments that the plaintiffs' combined losses exceeded $5 million. Which is a bit like 100 aspiring screenwriters trying to sue the creators of Final Draft because some bug corrupted all the screenplays they were writing. That totally would have made them all at least $5 million, honest gov. Anyway, the court didn't buy either of those arguments and dismissed the case with prejudice. Now, the verdict was not a judgment on the substance of the claim. Judge Hoffner wasn't saying, "This case is bollocks, chuck it out." Just that it didn't count as a RICO case and couldn't be tried at the federal level. Which came as something of a surprise to Valve, who were prepping to go all third-party mediation over the matter shortly before it got dismissed. Yes, it may surprise you to know that Valve weren't the ones who filed a motion to dismiss. That dubious honour goes to one of the other defendants named in the class action suit. Guess who? That's right, none other than co-founder of CSGO Lotto, wax-faced shitbag, peddler of gambling to kids, and cynical exploiter of dogs, Trevor Martin, aka T. Martin.
I'm sorry.
Well, it was really T. Martin's lawyer that filed it, if we're going to be pedantic. Nevertheless, it worked, leaving Valve in the unenviable position of thanking one of the scumbags who got them into this mess in the first place for getting them out of it again. For the meantime, at least. The plaintiffs can still appeal the decision or try to continue the case through a lower court if they so choose. Either way, this isn't over just yet. Indeed, this whole skin gambling fiasco has already had a tangible knock-on effect. You see, Judge Koner of the US Federal Court may have dismissed the case, but the Washington State Gambling Commission hasn't. According to an announcement they released on October the 5th, they sent Valve a cease and desist letter in September, ordering them to immediately halt the trading of Counter-Strike Global Offensive weapon skins for gambling purposes. The WSGC also gave Valve until October 14th to respond to the letter and explain how they're in full compliance with Washington State gambling laws. In the WSGC's own words, the Gambling Commission directed Valve Corporation to stop facilitating the use of skins for gambling activities through its Steam platform. The Gambling Commission expects Valve to take whatever actions are necessary to stop third-party websites from using skins for gambling through its Steam platform system, including preventing these sites from using their accounts and bots to facilitate gambling transactions. Valve obviously haven't stopped skin trading itself. You can still buy keys to open crates to get skins to sell on third-party marketplace sites. What Valve did do, however, back in July was send some cease and desist letters of their own to sites like CSGO Lotto, which now no longer exists, along with a not insignificant number of other CSGO skin casinos. Although I should point out the WSGC asked Valve to do something about skin casinos way back in February of this year. Valve sent out their cease and desist letters in late July, 5 months after the WSGC first contacted them, and only after the whole CSGO Lotto scandal had blown up so spectacularly. Anyhow, the obvious knock-on effect here is less people buying keys from Valve to open crates to get skins to gamble on third-party sites like CSGO Lotto, which may partly explain why Valve are now charging for in-game graffiti sprays. A feature of nearly every Valve game since the original Half-Life, customizable sprays were removed from CSGO a wee while after release, because some people were using them to spray porn everywhere. Now they're back in predefined, limited use, pay-as-you-spray microtransaction form. Now I'm not saying T Martin is somewhat to blame for sprays coming back as microtransactions, but T Martin is probably somewhat to blame for sprays coming back as microtransactions.
I'm sorry.
Valve could have had the option of pay to spray already on the table, of course, though I do have to wonder why they rolled this update out the very next day after the WSGC issued their public statement. Valve's reply to the WSGC's letter is still pending. All that legal malarkey aside, the sprays update looks like a blatant nickel and dime cash grab anyway. Even if Valve have seen skin crate key sales drop in the wake of shutting down all those CSGO skin casinos, it's not like they're fucking hurting for cash, is it? Finally, better late than never, we couldn't finish this special legal edition of Pixel Burn without addressing the latest developments vis-a-vis Digital Homicide. On September 26th, the notorious indie developer, not the band from Minneapolis with the same name, filed to have their ill-advised lawsuit against 100 Steam users dismissed without prejudice and requested a refund for their court fees. Having it dismissed without prejudice means they can try and bring it back at a later date, although the chances of that happening are pretty slim, according to one half of Digital Homicide. In this interview with TechRaptor, Digital Homicide co-founder James Romine Jr. confirmed the following. As far as Digital Homicide, it's destroyed. It's been stomped into the ground from 1,000 directions and use is discontinued. Which is good news for the band from Minneapolis, as well as Sebastian von Fappywank and friends. Quite likely also for Mr. Jim Sterling. While Digital Homicide's case against him is still pending, James Romine of Digital Homicide told TechRaptor the following. Sterling case waits for dismissal decision. No other comment on this. So that's one Jimquisition episode fans have to look forward to. The rest of the interview is Digital Homicide spouting a stream of conspiracy theories about shadowy competitors ganging up on them to bring them down, holding themselves up as paragons of otherwise saintly behaviour driven to extreme measures by harassment, and an absurd justification for abusing Steam's greenlight process, because some non-AAA types have publisher access and others don't. Defiant to the end, James Romine also said the following. We may have been painted in a negative customer light by gaming media. Truthfully, we've been fighting for lower prices and a more open market, which to me is the most important thing for consumers. You know, I cannot summon even a single quantum of the energy required to give the absurdity of that statement even a thimbleful of the mockery it deserves. So instead, let's just wave goodbye to the hostile, anti-consumer and frankly bonkers practices of Digital Homicide, and await their inevitable replacements to emerge, like the regenerating heads of a monstrous hydra spewing shoddy games. Nature abhors a vacuum after all, and there's always a buck or two to be made peddling shovelware on the Steam store. So besides law is complicated, what have we all learned from today's episode? Well, I don't know about you lot, you'll have to tell me in the comments, but speaking personally, having read so many US legal documents these past couple of weeks, I reckon I could probably make a decent bloody go at being a lawyer. That's all for this Law and Disorder episode of Pixel Burn. If you liked it, then please do let me know by clicking the requisite button down below and hitting subscribe if you haven't already, and letting your friends, your family, your dog, your cat, and your legal team know as well. At the very least, I hope you found it tolerable. Meanwhile, till next time, as always, you can go now.